The 2026 FIFA World Cup was supposed to be remembered forever. The biggest tournament in history. 48 nations, 3 host countries, 104 matches. The most watched sporting event ever staged. And it is being remembered, just not in the way anyone planned. Because match after match, week after week, the same conversation keeps happening. Not about goals, not about players, not about tactics or tournaments, or the beautiful moments that football exists to produce. About a system, a technology, a series of decisions made by cameras and sensors and monitors and officials sitting in booths above the pitch, reviewing footage that arrives faster than a human blink, making calls that have defined this tournament more completely than any footballer on any pitch. VAR was supposed to protect football from its worst moments. Instead, it has become the central character of the biggest World Cup in history. And somewhere in that sentence is the story that nobody at FIFA wants to tell. It started, as these things tend to do, with a moment that felt impossible. 103 minutes into Portugal versus Croatia in the round of 32 in Toronto, Josko Gvardiol bundled the ball home. Croatia, trailing 2-1, had found the equalizer that their World Cup survival required. Players ran to him. Fans behind the goal were on their feet. The noise that filled the stadium was the specific, unrepeatable noise of a team that has come back from the edge and survived. The celebrations lasted approximately 30 seconds. Then the referee was called to the monitor. Not because a player was visibly offside, not because a goalkeeper was pushed. Because a sensor embedded inside the match ball, a piece of technology that most fans watching at home had never heard of before this moment, had detected something that no camera could show and no human eye had caught. A touch from Igor Matanovic, so faint that Matanovic himself, when asked afterward whether he made contact, said he thought he might have felt something with his hair. His hair. The touch placed Mario Pasalic, who was involved in the play immediately before Gvardiol's finish, in an offside position at the legally relevant moment. The goal was disallowed. Croatia went home. Portugal went through. And the football world asked a question that the remainder of this tournament has not stopped asking. Has technology gone further than football ever asked it to go? Croatian fans inside the stadium threw bottles onto the pitch, not because the decision was provably wrong, because the decision came from somewhere invisible. Because the goal had gone in and the net had moved and Gvardiol was being celebrated, and then a machine inside of football said something that overruled everything anyone had seen with their own eyes, stood in the press conference and said words that cut through every diplomatic courtesy that post-match press conferences usually require. VAR kills the emotions, he said. It kills everything inside you, kills what you live for. We have gone too far. Roberto Martinez, Portugal's coach, offered the institutional defense. The balls now have chips, he said. The technology is clear. There is no room for argument. Both men were right. And the impossibility of resolving the gap between those two positions is what makes this moment matter beyond one match and one team. Because Croatia's disallowed goal was not an isolated incident. It was the loudest expression of something that had been building across this tournament since the second match of the opening day. Go back to June 17th. Argentina against Algeria in Kansas City. Lionel Messi in the 33rd minute brought his studs down on Algeria's captain Issa Mendy. From the knee to the ankle, Mendy went to the ground. Messi raised both hands, the immediate, instinctive gesture of a player who knows in the moment that something has happened. The referee awarded a foul. No card came out. And the VAR booth, which had access to every camera angle and every replay, reviewed the footage and concluded that no intervention was required. Messi stayed on the pitch. He scored a hat-trick. He equaled Miroslav Klose's all-time World Cup scoring record. The match became a celebration of one of football's greatest nights. And in the hours after the final whistle, the clips of the 33rd minute were circulating faster than the clips of the goals. ESPN's El Moreno said it directly on air. 100% a red card. His colleague Nedum Onuoha agreed. Former Egyptian international Mohamed Aboutrika said the same thing on BIN Sports, broadcasting to hundreds of millions of viewers across the Arab world. Algeria's Football Federation filed a formal complaint with FIFA's refereeing commission, documenting the incident and questioning why VAR had not intervened. The complaint asked a specific question that FIFA has not publicly answered. If the VAR standard is a clear and obvious error, how is this not one? And how does the standard that said the Messi challenge was not a clear and obvious error connect to the standard that said Josko Gvardiol's goal in Toronto was disallowed because of a touch too small for human senses to detect? Both decisions came from the same system. Both were reviewed by the same technology. Both produced outcomes that significant portions of the football world found difficult to reconcile. The system that was too precise to allow Croatia's goal stood back when Algeria needed it to intervene. The system that protected Messi came to life when it was time to disallow Gvardiol. That is not a conspiracy. That is a pattern of outcomes. And patterns demand explanation. Before the Algeria complaint had been formally processed, the VAR controversy had found another team to define. June 29th. The United States versus Bosnia-Herzegovina in Santa Clara. Folarin Balogun, the leading scorer for the host nation, the player around whom Mauricio Pochettino had built his team's attacking identity, had scored the opening goal in what would become a 2-0 victory. A victory that gave the United States their first World Cup knockout win in 24 years. And in the 64th minute, Balogun went to ground in a challenge with Bosnian defender Tarik Muharemovic. His studs came down on Muharemovic's calf. The referee on the field reviewed the incident and did not immediately act. VAR official Juan Soto sent him to the monitor. Straight red card. Balogun trudged to the dressing room, watching through the exit tunnel as his teammates played out the remaining 26 minutes without him. The United States won anyway. They celebrated in the locker room, singing, full of joy. And Balogun sat among them, knowing he would not be there for the round of 16 against Belgium. Pochettino was clear in his press conference. For me, it is never a red card. Never. If the intention is to damage the opponent, I understand. But it was a normal action in football that happened by accident. Weston McKennie, one of the team's most experienced voices, said the quiet part out loud. There have been many other plays like that throughout this tournament, on other players that a card was not given at all. He called the inability to appeal the decision bogus. The comparison McKennie was making without naming it directly was the same comparison that every football analyst covering the tournament had already noted. The Messi incident. The Balogun incident. Both involved studs on a leg. Both were reviewed by VAR. One produced no card, one produced a red card and a one-match suspension that cannot be appealed under FIFA's own regulations. In both cases, the technical argument can be made that the correct decision was reached according to the specific laws of football. The standard for a red card involves not just the nature of contact, but the force, the intent as it can be inferred from the action, and the area of the body targeted. But the experience of watching both incidents, back to back, is the experience of seeing a system produce wildly different outcomes for actions that look similar from a distance. And that experience, felt by millions of fans who are not lawyers or referees and do not carry rulebooks to the couch, is eroding something that matters more to football than any individual decision: trust. By the time Germany met Paraguay in the last 32, the tournament's VAR story had already accumulated enough incidents to be its own defining narrative. And Germany added to it in the most painful way possible. 112 minutes played. Germany, all-time World Cup winners, a nation with 4 titles and a century of football tradition, drew a corner. Jonathan Tah rose to meet it. His header beat Paraguay's goalkeeper. The net moved. VAR reviewed. The conclusion, a foul on the goalkeeper in the build-up. The goal was disallowed. ESPN's own VAR analysis described the call as incorrectly made. Germany went to penalties, whose shootout record at World Cups had been a source of national pride for generations, lost their first ever World Cup penalty shootout. They went home. Manuel Neuer announced his international retirement. Julian Nagelsmann fought for his job in real time in front of cameras. And the disallowed goal, which occurred before any of that, sat at the beginning of the chain that produced all of it. Dalik's words, spoken about Croatia, applied equally to Germany. Technology had taken something away at the moment when it mattered most. Not something visible. Not something that a defender who pushed a goalkeeper would acknowledge. Something that a review found and a standard confirmed, and a red card or a disallowed goal formalized in front of millions of people who had been celebrating and were suddenly not. And it was not only the decisions themselves, it was what happened at the moment between the celebration and the cancellation. Because that moment, the 30 seconds or the 90 seconds between a goal going in and a VAR review beginning, has become the most emotionally complicated moment in modern football. During those seconds, fans celebrate, players run to each other, coaches pump their fists on the touchline. The stadium makes noise, commentators raise their voices, and every person watching knows, somewhere in the back of their mind, that the celebration might not last. That knowledge, distributed across every stadium and every living room and every bar where football is being watched, has changed the experience of watching a goal being scored. It has introduced a layer of anxiety between the event and its confirmation that football never had before. The question used to be whether the goal was good enough. Now the question is whether the technology will allow it to stand. England felt that in their match against DR Congo. Kane chased a through ball into the area. The goalkeeper challenged. Kane went down. Thousands of England fans raised their arms. The referee waved play on. VAR reviewed. No penalty given. The debate that followed was not one-sided. Former officials and analysts discounted about the contact. Some said it was clear. Some said the goalkeeper got to the ball. The decision was contested enough that it ran across social media for hours while the match was still being played. England went on to win. Kane scored twice. The result was fine. But the penalty incident, the moment that wasn't, became the conversation. And that is the specific way that VAR has shifted the territory of football storytelling. The thing that didn't happen now competes with the thing that did for the attention of the world watching. All 5 of these incidents share something important. They were all technically defensible. The sensor inside the ball did detect something. The standard for a red card was technically applied. The goalkeeper foul was judged according to the laws of the game. The VAR team reviewed the footage and reached a conclusion. What they do not share is the experience of watching them felt fair. And fairness in football is not a legal concept. It is an emotional one. It is the thing that makes a stadium erupt not just because a team scored, but because the team deserved to score. It is the thing that makes a World Cup feel like a celebration of the sport rather than an argument about the sport. It is the thing that Dalek was describing when he said VAR kills everything inside you. The technology does not experience football, it processes it. It detects touches and calculates positions and applies standards. It does not know what it feels like to have a World Cup goal credited and then taken back because of a contact measured in the width of a hair. It does not know what it feels like to miss a round of 16 match because of a red card that your own coach says should never have been shown. The people who build the technology understand football's rules. What they may not fully reckon with is what football's moments mean to the people inside them. FIFA defends every decision. The connected ball technology was proven correct. The VAR standards were applied consistently. The red card followed the laws of the game. The guidelines were followed. The process worked. All of that may be true, and none of it explains why this is the first World Cup where celebrating a goal feels like a risk, where surviving a challenge means waiting to see whether the system agrees, where the conversations happening the morning after matches are about the decisions that shaped them rather than the football that filled them. Perhaps the biggest winner of World Cup 2026 was never a team, it was never a player, never a stadium, never a host nation or a governing body or a broadcast partnership. It was technology. Quiet, precise, invisible inside a ball, running at frequencies no human can hear, detecting context too small for eyes to see, making calls that change World Cups and retire careers and end generations. And doing it all without emotion, without context, without the slightest awareness of what it is taking from the people in the moments it alters. The question that this tournament has forced into the open is not whether VAR is accurate. It probably is, more often than not, more precisely than anyone who came before it. The question is what football loses when accuracy becomes the only thing that matters. What do you think? Is VAR protecting football from the human errors that have defined it for a century? Or is it quietly dismantling the thing that makes football beautiful, the uncertainty, the emotion, the imperfect human drama that no technology can replicate? These are the conversations this channel exists for.